Hi guys, this video is going to be the first in several videos that I'm going to make on the topic of the afterlife in the Jewish faith. So, in this particular video, I don't want to get too much into the details, I just want to talk about the very existence of the afterlife in the Jewish faith, whether there is such a belief or whether there is not. So, both today and in ancient times, the answer is not a simple yes or no. You can find Jews who believe various different things regarding the afterlife, both among religious Jews as well as among less religious Jews and traditional Jews. This diversity is reflected not only today, which you can see for yourself by comparing what Orthodox Jews have to say or Hasidic Jews have to say in comparison to non-Hasidic Orthodox Jews. And the same goes with like the conservative movement and the reform movement. But you can also see this even in ancient times, and even reflected in the New Testament with regard to the disputes between the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the folk beliefs of the first century Jewish religion. One of the views that is most pushed by the academic establishment is that the authentic view, quote unquote, is that there were no Jewish beliefs regarding the afterlife and that these evolved later on in Jewish history. And this view really, in my opinion, is coming from I hate to say it because I don't really like this term, but I believe it's coming from a somewhat anti-Semitic approach. Even if the individual who has this opinion that the ancient Israelites didn't believe in an afterlife, I believe that the systematic push that this is the true view of the real Israelites is coming from a type of anti-Semitism that's latent in the academic establishment, painting the Pharisees of the first century and the modern-day traditional Jewish views as being inauthentic, in contrast to a abstract ancient Israelite people who had a completely different view and today no longer exist, so now we can delegitimize the Jewish people. I think you get what I'm saying. Now, if we're talking about biblical times, of course, a large portion, if not the majority of the Jews in the first century, as recorded in the New Testament and the Talmudic literature, definitely had views with regard to the afterlife, and no one really disputes this. The only exception to that group, to this consensus, being the small number of Sadducees, and everyone agrees that they were a small number as well. When we're going back further into ancient Old Testament times, the times of the ancient Hebrew prophets, that's where there's more debate, and largely this is due to the fact that there's much less ancient literature. Of course, the further back you go in history, the less literature there's going to be, whether due to problems in preservation or lack of literacy. However, I am thoroughly convinced that the early leadership of the people of Israel did believe, at least mostly, did believe in an afterlife, and I believe this was a normative view, and a view that is quite evident in the biblical literature. It may or may not have been highly developed, but it is a fact that the Jewish scriptures, the law of Moses and the prophets, do not go into the great detail of the afterlife and informing dogmas regarding the afterlife that we see in Islam and in Christianity. But that is not to say that the Jewish faith has no beliefs. One of the really, I think, indisputable indications that there was a belief in the afterlife among the ancient Israelites is in the fact that King Saul went to a witch in order to conjure up the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Now, wouldn't it be sort of odd that King Saul would go to conjure up the spirit of a prophet who had already passed away if King Saul didn't believe in an afterlife? Now, the very fact that King Saul did this, and even if he believed in an afterlife, which I think is obvious, That doesn't mean that it's an authentic Jewish belief, but it does show that there were those in leadership who certainly had this view. Back to the Torah, the law of Moses, the most ancient part of the Old Testament, and find that there's a prohibition there in the Torah against the Israelites seeking the dead. Why would there be a prohibition against seeking the dead given to a people who don't believe that the dead have any sort of consciousness? If one believes that the Torah was given by the Creator, wouldn't it be easier to just declare once and for all that those who die simply cease to exist 100%? Of course, the text itself doesn't say black and white, and that's important to note. But if you're trying to take a logical approach, an intellectually honest approach at understanding the text, I think it's rather clear that the concept of an afterlife is sort of a given. And in the next video, I hope to bring many more examples of this from the text of the Hebrew Bible, as well as from other more recent, albeit still ancient, Jewish literature, such as the Talmud and the Midrash. I want to end this video to make the point that, contrary to anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist, and anti-Semitic, truly anti-Semitic individuals and propaganda, the Jewish people have a diverse range of beliefs. That which unites them is their common history, which is tied into the Bible, the biblical narrative, and Hebrew literature. That is the underlying factor. But the Jewish people are individuals, and just as Americans have diverse views, just as there is diversity in every other culture and nation on earth, so also there's diversity among the Jewish people. But in these videos, we really want to focus on the normative or prevailing views throughout history. And in doing so, also focus here and there about some variations at different periods in time. Alright, well, look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. If any of you are interested in learning Hebrew, whether the biblical Hebrew or modern conversational Hebrew, please consider reaching out to me. You can visit my page on Patreon, which is linked at the bottom underneath this video, and let me know whether you're interested. That's a way that you can help support my making these videos, because it frees up more of my time, and in doing so you can get something out of it, your own knowledge of the biblical language, so you can study the Bible more for yourself in the original language. Looking forward to hearing from you. All the best. Shalom uvracha.